Hello, it's Lindy Royer, founder of Meadows Pilates and Physical Therapy and creator of the Body Truth program. And I'm here with you as a continuation of our indoor golf series. In the last video, we talked about the spine. In fact, it was the second part of our conversation about the spine. And as promised in this video, we're going to talk more about the ribs and how the rib cage affects the rotation that we get when we're swinging a golf club. So with me, we have incomplete Seymour. You've been introduced to our full Seymour, and this Seymour is actually a rescue Seymour. Believe it or not, I had a colleague who was going to throw him out because, as you can see, he's missing some arms and some legs, and his collarbone is broken. But I actually find this Seymour really helpful when talking about the ribs. So that's why we have rescue Seymour with us today. So if any of you have rescue animals, you'll know what I'm talking about. So when we look at the rib cage, most of us are not quite aware of the size of the ribs. They're a lot bigger than you might think in your own body, and we'll take a look in a second on you and show you where some of these things are that I'm going to be pointing out. But the first and second ribs are actually up behind the collarbone, so that's how high the rib cage goes in your body. Right up underneath those ribs is actually the top of the lung, on either side, obviously. And then the bottom of the rib cage, especially in the front, you'll notice it's pretty low. So the bottom of the rib cage, if you just put your fingertip right at about waist level, you should be able to feel the bottom of the last attached rib, which is actually your 10th rib. So if you follow that up and around, you'll find the front of the arch of the rib cage here. And if you come all the way to the center, you're going to find your sternum or chest bone. Now this part along the side, along the front side of each side of the sternum, is actually made out of cartilage. Same stuff that's in the end of your nose, same stuff that's pretty much makes up your whole ear. So that's all cartilage. And if you wiggle your ear with your fingertips like this, you'll notice it's pretty soft. Same thing if you wiggle your nose, like Samantha, which I can't really do, but I can do it with my fingers. I don't know if there's magic in that or not. But it'd be good if there was. So this stuff on either side of the sternum before it attaches to the ribs is cartilage, which means that it's quite flexible and quite bendy. So it's really a bit of a misnomer to call this a cage because it's more flexible than you think. So we've explored the front of the ribs. Now what I'd like you to do is walk up the sternum, this chest bone here, which also is a little bit bendy. There's a joint right about here on me, which is right about there on Seymour. There's also a little joint right at the bottom. So the sternum itself has some flexibility. If you keep coming up your sternum and go across your collarbones, just lightly put your fingertips over the top of your collarbones, and back there, don't push too hard, but back there is the first and second rib. So your rib cage comes up quite high, goes down quite low. If you now just take your hands right down to the lower back, right there are your two floating ribs. So on our Seymour here, they're very floaty. You'll see that they're quite bendable. But those are your floating ribs. So the rib cage is lower in the back and higher in the front. In a golf swing, we practiced rotation last time from the spine. In a golf swing, the rib cage also obviously has to turn. What I want you to do this week is imagine as you're rotating, so same movement as last week, what I want you to imagine is just by placing your hands right across on either side of your sternum, you're going to rotate just like you were practicing last week. I want you to imagine that cartilage on either side of the sternum moving. What you'll feel is as you rotate to the right, so I'm turning my sternum to face to the right, the cartilage on the right side actually gets a little flatter. It actually flattens out a little bit. When you rotate to the left, the cartilage on the front left flattens out a little bit. So the rib cage, or the ribs, are moving and bending and adapting to this rotational move. So now in your rotational practice this week, incorporate the image that we used last week of the spine moving. Now you're going to bring this more three-dimensionally into the entire rib cage, and just imagine the movement and the bend of the ribs as you rotate. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.